Hi, I'm Stephen Weber, and you're watching The Claw's Corner because Rich Cyr is a sick bastard.
Welcome to another episode of The Claw's Corner, the Zoom edition. Today's guest is a singer, songwriter, author, and a legendary drummer. His bands include Vanilla Fudge, Cactus, Rod Stewart, the power trio Beck, Bogert, and Appice, King Cobra, and Blue Murder. He has played with everyone, and when I say everyone, I mean everyone, from Jeff Beck, Rick Derringer, Ted Nugent, Brian May, and Yngwie Malmsteen, just to name a few. He is credited with influencing Aerosmith's Joey Kramer, Phil Collins, Neil Peart, John Bonham, and many, many more. He was inducted into the Classic Drummer Hall of Fame in 2013 and the Modern Drummer Hall of Fame in 2014. What hasn't this guy done? Please welcome the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Carmine Appice. How are you?
The mustache.
The man, the myth, the mustache,
The
Mr.
mustache.
Carmine Appice. How are you?
I'm good.
I want to thank you very much for being on the show. And I also want to thank mutual friends of ours for helping set this up, Lucinda Rowe and Mick Connolly.
Yes, they're good people. I love those guys.
Great people. You know, I saw them right before the pandemic. We're in the middle of the pandemic right now as we're filming this. And they recently moved to Red Room Studio. Sound
Yes,
studio.
I know.
Great
It's awesome.
place. Yeah. Did you ever have a chance to go down there yet?
I haven't. I mean, just when they were finishing, we were talking about going there, and this virus thing hit. I've been in Connecticut. We were in New York City, and we heard that it was going to be in a state of emergency in New York City.
Yeah.
I said, oh my God, so let's get out of here. So we got out of here and we went to our house in Connecticut. While we were here, we had it up for sale and we sold it. And we have a house that we bought in Florida that we've been renovating. So next week we're moving to Florida. So we're going to have New York and Florida. And
pandemic has definitely not slowed you down, I can tell.
Yeah. But we're planning it anyway, but unfortunately it happened. But actually it was good because it gave me time to be here and pack.
Yeah.
You know, because packing a house was not easy. My wife has been in this house since 1988.
Wow.
So you can imagine all this stuff. And she's been in radio. She has a lot of radio CDs, a year of radio CDs from one show, and just tons and tons of stuff. So we had 2 dumpsters already. We've many visits to Goodwill, and I gave away drum stuff to School of Rock. It just, we've been doing this for weeks.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you have a chance to sit down and relax for at least a little while. The reason I brought up Red Room Sound Studio is because you've been around since the 60s and you've seen and heard it all. Are you more of an analog guy or a digital guy?
Well, I like analog for certain things and digital for certain things. I like the fact of the sound you get on analog, but I like what you can do with digital as far as editing and mixing and, cut and pasting stuff and fixing stuff. Yeah. That's a lot better. And mixing. We're mixing a Cactus record right now, and it's all by email. Once we get the mix done, then we send it to another guy. He bounces it to analog and back, so then it gives it the analog sound. So I like the combination of both worlds.
Yeah. Well, the reason I brought that up, because as you know, Lucinda and Mick have an all analog studio.
Yeah, but she said she has a Pro Tools in there as well.
Yeah, she does.
So I'm talking to her about maybe recording some Vanilla Fudge stuff in there.
All right. Well, I can hardly wait. I want to talk to you about a tribute that you put together with your brother, Vinny Appice, who was in Dio, Heaven and Hell, and Black Sabbath. Tell me about that.
So, we wrote this song in 2011 with King Cobra. It's called Monsters and Heroes, and it's about Ronnie James Dio. Okay,
died 10 years ago.
Yeah, so we put it on. We never did anything with it except record it with King Cobra, give it to Wendy Dio for Ronnie's Cancer Fund.
Yeah.
And then when I got it back, we were just about to start doing mine and Vinny's record, and I showed it to Vinny. I said, "You should be on this record, which is already recorded. Let's put you on this song. It could be a great song for us," because I knew Ronnie, you knew Ronnie, and Paul Shotino, who wrote the lyrics, sang with King Cobra. He knew Ronnie really well too, so this makes it a really cool thing. So we did that. We released it on our album 217, and it became the major song of the record. You know, we did a lyric video, we did a regular video, and we have, you know, a couple 100,000 views we had on it at the time. So we said, let's, you know, that's the main thing. So Vinny called me 3 weeks ago and said, I want to do one of those lockdown videos, like, you know, like looking like the Hollywood Squares,
Yeah.
the Partridge Family or the Brady Bunch,
Brady
whatever
Bunch.
it was. You know, so he said, yeah, that's cool. So I said, well, why don't we do that? And while we're doing that, we can do it for a reason, you know? He said, and the reason could be, it's Ronnie Dio's 10th anniversary of his passing. I said, oh, that's a good reason to do it. So I said, well, if we're going to do that, why don't we promote it and get somebody to do PR, and we can get radio stations and podcasts and whatever, and everybody could put it on the social media, on play some of the stuff with an MP3 on radio, and get a lot of people to know that it's the 10th anniversary.
Yeah.
So that's what we did, and so far it worked.
Yeah.
So all last week we did a bunch of these kind of interviews with Zoom and regular radio and podcasts, and the first couple of days we got like almost 12,000 views.
Wow. Well, I did see the video, and one thing I noticed that Paul Shortino was not singing. Is that correct?
No, that's not Paul.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
That's our Drum Wars tribute. That's our Drum Wars show band. It's we use the same guys. James Caputo is also in Cactus that we're mixing now. Jimmy Crean's the singer, and Artie Dillon is the guitar player. But Artie's also the engineer that did the audio, put the whole thing together, and edited the video.
Yeah.
So he's a very talented kid.
Yeah.
And we had played the song so many times, you know, with doing our live gigs, you know, we had played the song so many times that we just said, Vinny said, let's just get the live Drum Wars band to do it. I said, yeah, great idea, because we know the song really well. I mean, we could have got Paul, a different guy, but then there's no way to rehearse.
Yeah.
You know? Paul never played it live with us, you know. So these guys knew it. We did it. I did it in one take on my iPhone, audio and video. Everyone else had a studio to do it in, you know, their own home studios, and they had a separate camera.
Yeah.
So I was lucky. I did it in the iPhone, and Artie took the track off the iPhone, and he fixed my drum track so it sounded like Vinny's track is good. And then we filled it in with everybody else, and did the editing. And it's great. And the editing is good because it's not standing still. The editing screens are moving all over the place, you know?
Yeah, yeah. No, it came out great. I saw the video 3 or 4 times. I love the song. I love how it was put together. I definitely love what it was about, because Ronnie James Dio was one of my favorite vocalists. And
yes, yeah. And if you go to our website of APPICE Brothers spelled out.com, you got the video link, and you got a link to the lyrics. You can actually read the lyrics as you're listening to the video or watching the video.
Okay. Now, obviously, Vinny was in 2 different bands with him, 3 including Heaven and Hell. When did you first meet Ronnie?
I met Ronnie way before Vinny, in like 1976 or 7.
That was
5,
Elf.
maybe even 75, and he was in Elf.
Yes.
And he was opening for Deep Purple, and Deep Purple were in LA, and they were playing LA. I was in LA. Started living there, and we all hung out at the Rainbow, and I met Ronnie. I never even heard him sing. And then maybe a year later, or a few months later, he joined Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow. Mm-hmm. And Ritchie asked me to join Rainbow, but I couldn't do it. I had a band going with Mike Bloomfield at the time, which was probably the most unsuccessful project in my career, you know. But I missed out on joining Rainbow by doing that, or I would have been in Rainbow with Ronnie. Wow. And then, you know, I knew him through those years. And then when my brother started playing with him with Sabbath, I got to know him better. And then by the time they started playing in Dio, Ronnie and Vinny were real close. And Ronnie was Italian. He had no family out in California. So anytime we had my family, which had, you know, all my family out there, my mother and father, everybody was out there. My family would have a Christmas, Ronnie would come. You know, we'd have birthday, Ronnie would come. We'd go to his house, Ronnie's house for parties. He invited them to my wedding. I got married in 1983. That got divorced as well. But he came to the wedding. He threw me a bachelor party. You know, it was like we were really close.
Yeah.
you know. So, so that's what made it really a good idea for us to do it with Paul, me, and Ronnie.
Yeah.
Paul, me, and Vinny, because Paul used to be managed by Ronnie with Rough Cut,
Yes.
and Ronnie produced the record, and so he was close to him. So that's how it all happened, and that's how I got to know Ronnie. And it was a drag when he was in the hospital dying.
I
We
know.
went to the hospital. He looked so bad. I said to my brother, I said, he looks like Pop, my father did, the day before he died. And the next day, Ronnie died.
Well,
And
it
next
was a
thing
shock
we
to
know,
me.
we're seeing him in the coffin and then in the cemetery being buried. It was awful.
Yeah, that was such a big loss.
Oh man, beautiful,
Well,
great singer. He wasn't only they call him a heavy metal singer. I mean, that whole heavy metal crap started in the '80s. He was a hard rock singer. He was a soulful rock singer.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I mean, these metal bands in the '80s, these what you call these hair bands. Most of those guys couldn't even sing. Ronnie was a real singer. He could sing Frank Sinatra. I mean, listen to the beginning of Last in Line. With a great vocal, with a soulful vocal.
Definitely. What I liked about him too is he's a great singer, and also he knows the value of performance. He put on an awesome show along with a great job at singing.
Yeah.
He never let the singing suffer.
Because he's old school. He was old school. He wasn't, he wasn't an '80s guy, that was 20 years old. He was old school. Already in the '80s, he was already like almost 40 years old.
Wow. Well, I've heard nothing but great things about him from every interview with every musician I've read who worked with Ronnie. What's your fondest memory of him?
Well, I mean, I had a load of them. The one was when he, I was getting married. My manager said, we're going to go to the strip bar and have a drink for you.
I like it already.
So I said, okay, great. So we get there. I walk in, and I see in the lobby, I see Ronnie. I said, Ronnie, what are you doing here? He says, I come here sometimes. I go, wow, what a coincidence. So I walk in, everyone goes, surprise. Next thing I'm on stage with 40 boobs. And then I find out that Ronnie arranged the strip bar. I wouldn't be surprised if he paid for it, I mean, there was other good things at parties and doing the hearing aid thing, but that thing really left an impression on my head because, he arranged it all. He went out of his way. So I say he was like part of our family. He was like a fourth brother,
Yeah. Well, let's go back. Let's talk about your career right now because you have had such a long career. Probably just reading the credits would take up an hour and a half. Growing up, were you more influenced by jazz or rock drummers?
I was definitely jazz.
Jazz.
My two greatest influences was Gene Krupa and Buddy Rich.
All right.
Okay.
I love the CD where they use. Actually, it's funny because you and Vinny have drum wars. It reminds me of Gene Krupa and Buddy Rich when they used to have their drum wars.
That's right. That's where we got the idea from. But we actually got the idea from Vinny saying his name Appice and me saying Appice and everybody being confused. Yeah. So we did a DVD in the '80s. First we did a clinic tour, and everybody was confused. So we did a DVD, a goof DVD called Drum Wars, the ultimate battle, and we were battling for the name, Appice or Appice. Well, nobody. My older brother called in. It was like a spoof. It was a joke, like
no, obviously
really stupid stuff. Like in the end, there was a Francesca Capucci is her name. Yeah, she was on ABC News. We had her as the commentator, So she,
I love it.
She said, the phone rings. It's a regular phone. It says Frank, my brother's Frank Appice calling in on a satellite phone. It was just a regular office phone where you push the button. So he gets in on the speaker and he says, look, they're both wrong. It's not Appice. It's not Appice. It's Appice.
All right.
So she goes, oh my God, it's Appice. Well, I guess that's it then. So it made the whole video useless by him saying that,
That's funny.
But it was a very funny video, but then it was Drum Wars. And I said, we got to take this to the stage somehow,
No, definitely.
And then in 2011, after Ronnie passed, we did an experimental Drum Wars gig in LA, an experimental Drum Wars clinic in Albany, New York. And both of them were successful. So then we said, well, let's try and put it together and put a show together. So we did Drum Wars as a show, and we kept a lot of that joking and a lot of that that funny stuff in it, you know. And you know, we do a bit about the name when after I do a solo, he goes, "That's my brother, Carmine Appice. Let's hear for him." And then he would clap and he said, "People want to know why he's Appice and I'm Appice. This is a story."
Okay,
and he starts opening his mouth. He goes, as soon as he said, "This is a story," I start playing loud. And he starts going like, you know, nothing coming out of his mouth. And I stop. He goes, "That's a story." You know, so we keep it entertaining. You know, we keep the jokes coming, kidding around. We get him singing with us. You know, we tell a story about knowing Ronnie, and you know, we wrote the song. You know, and the song's all about Ronnie. Want to hear you guys sing along. It's a really cool show. So we call the show Drum Wars.
Yeah.
You know, and the band is you know, like there's some people call their tour, like Rod called Footloose and Fancy Free Tour, the name of the album. So we call it the Drum Wars Tour by the Appice Brothers.
Love it. I've seen it, and I highly recommend next time you're in the area, check it out.
Where'd you see it?
I saw it in New York.
Oh, okay. Where, at the cutting room?
Yes.
Well, did you come with Lucinda?
No, I went on my own, but it was such a great show.
Was that like in February?
Yes, that was the one.
That was my last gig.
Really?
Yeah, but then right after that, you know, it was, what, three weeks later, the virus
the pandemic. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, getting back to Buddy Rich, you actually became friends with him.
I did. And he's a great guy. You know, the first time I met him, we smoked a joint with him, me and my brother, and it was like, I can't believe we're smoking a joint with Buddy Rich. And then he went on to play an amazing show, you know.
Well, you know, it's funny because I'm sure everybody who knows Buddy Rich heard the infamous bus tapes, and they're like, I got to stay away from this guy. He seems like, I read a biography on him, and, you know, there's obviously good and bad, but he was a genius, and pretty much everybody that worked with him said the same thing. He's tough, but he was a great guy.
He's a genius, without a doubt. There's nobody like him. But the difference between like him and Gene Krupa was an established star, you know, like a movie star. He was in a lot of movies. He was a drum star. He's the guy that brought the drums to the front that enabled Buddy Rich to be what he was, you know. And he was amazing, Gene Krupa, showman. All the women loved him. My mother used to tell me how we used to go see him at the Paramount, New York Paramount, and he got people dancing in the aisles. And he was like, you know, like a rock star, you know. Yeah. Buddy was more of a musician star, you know. And, you know, he did movies. They did a movie about his life. It was pretty amazing, you know. But those two guys were my lead guys.
Well, I have that CD of Gene Krupa versus Buddy Rich, and I listen to it all the time. But Buddy Rich had such a great sense of humor. He became a favorite on the Johnny Carson show. That's when I first started knowing who he was back in the 70s. Right. Who is this guy? But you have a great story. I want you to tell me about it. You, Buddy Rich, an animal from the Muppets.
Oh, yeah. Well, I became friends with Buddy in the last 6 or 7 years of his life. He did my drum off. And when I met him, you know, back that first time was when I smoked the joint was when I met him. And so we got to be friends. So he started doing that Sonic drum advertisement. And they said, you should go talk to them. So I talked to them, and I got a huge deal being an endorsement spokesperson for them. And I did clinics for them in like Macy's and weird places. And so anyway, I went to Australia, and I was doing a clinic, and these people said, I saw you on TV the other night. I said, oh, with Rod Stewart? And I said, oh, no, with the Muppets. I said, the Muppets? What the hell are the Muppets? You know, I never watched TV much in the 70s, you know? Yeah. And they said, oh, you never saw the Muppets? So they showed me a video of Animal. I said, that's you. And I looked at it, I said, you're right. I'm curly hair, all those drums around. I was the only one around in those days that looked like that. So when I got back, I said to my manager, hey, I want to do a drum battle with Animal from the Muppets. So he didn't know who it was either. So I showed him the video, and he said, okay. So he calls up the Muppet production company. He said, I represent Carmine Appice. He plays with Rod Stewart, blah, blah, blah. You know, those days we were playing like 4 or 5 nights at the Garden, 6 nights at the Forum, you know, multiple nights in the 20,000 seater, you know, and, you know, I could, no, Sexy was number one, you know, I had a lot of PR, I was, you know, well known. And so they said, okay, we'll check it out. We'll call you back. They called us back in 2 weeks and they said, okay, we got good news and bad news. What's the good news? Good news is we love the idea, we're gonna do it. So my manager says, so what's the bad news? We're gonna use Buddy Rich.
Ah.
So I called Buddy and I said, Buddy, I hear you're gonna have a drum battle with a puppet named Animal, the Muppet Show. He says, how do you know? I said, it was my idea to do. I wanted to have the drum battle.
That's funny.
We called them up and we got them going on the idea. You know, it was my idea. So Buddy said, hey, they wanted the best.
He always was humble, wasn't he?
Yeah, so I said, you bastard, you know. But I said, and then when I saw it, you did an amazing job.
Well, I
don't know if it was their idea to say, when I play a theater, I play the theater, and he went around and played everything.
Yeah.
Or if that was his idea. But any way you look at it, it was great. And me and Vinny a couple of years ago, we played shows in Europe, and they were videoing us for a TV thing backstage. And we said, hey, you know, when we play a theater, we started going around the dressing room playing everything, you know.
I know. Just recently, I saw that clip on YouTube. I remember seeing that in the 80s whenever it came out.
Yeah,
They could have had you on season 2, though. That would have been great.
That would have been great, yeah.
Let's talk about Guitar Zeus.
Okay.
What's the genesis of that, and who's featured on that?
Well, I started that, and I did in 1995. I had the idea in 1993, and it took me 2 years to find a manager to get a record deal together. And, you know, it was like I just come out of playing with Blue Murder. I was put a band together with Jeff Watson from Night Ranger, Bob Daisley, and Joel Turner. And we were up at Jeff's house in Sausalito. Jeff just came out of Night Ranger, and he got a record deal just like that. I've been trying to get a second record deal for a solo album for 10 years. I said, man, it's unbelievable. A guitar player comes out, gets a record deal like that. A drummer can't get a record deal to get arrested. Maybe I need to do a guitar record, a guitar album. I'll call it Guitar Gods. I said, no, I'll call it Guitar Zeus.
I love
we
it.
were screwing with the name Zeus for the band Mother's Army. So then I went to bed that night. I thought, that's a really good idea. If I can get a couple of my friends like Ted Nugent and a few guys like that and play on a record it's my record, it'd be great. So it took me 2 years to find a deal. In the interim of the 2 years, I ran into Ted Nugent somewhere, and I asked Ted if he'd play on it. He said, yeah. I ran into Brian May at a clinic at a house of guitars in New York, you know, upstate New York, and he said he would play on it because this is after Freddie died, and there wasn't a lot he was doing. I mean, he was out doing clinics, you know, give me a break. Brian May doing clinics. So
it's a shame.
So once we got the idea, you know, I got the manager. He got a record deal from Japan, funny fall. So then I called up Ted and I called up Brian. I said, I got a record deal. Is it okay if you play? Yeah. And so I hooked up with Kelly Keeling, who played with Blue Murder, and he was a great singer. And I found out he was a great writer, and he played guitar, bass, drums, and everything, you know, and he played keyboard and he sang great ideas, great harmonies, great production ideas. So I hooked up with him, and he's a bit of a genius, and the genius to the point where he was crazy, you know. So I worked it, and I put all the songs together, and finally I gave Brian a choice of 3 songs and Ted a choice of 3 songs. And I went and got Ted on tape in Detroit. I sent the 24-track to Brian, and then I went and got Yngwie Malmsteen because he heard about it through Kelly. He wanted to do it. And then I had guys calling me, like I called Slash, and he said okay. And then I called Mick Mars, he said okay. And so between sending tapes out and going to get tapes, the guys in King's X were going to do it. Ty, the guitarist, and Doug Pinnick, and Yngwie wanted to be on the track with Doug Pinnick, you know. And then Mick Mars wanted to be on the track I had with Edgar Winter. you know. So it was weird combinations of people, and it was an amazing album. It came out, it went to #4 on the Burn charts in Japan. It sold 50,000 over in Europe. I went over, did a European tour, and my idea of doing press would cross over from drum magazines and rock magazines to me doing guitar magazine interviews. And it was true. I saw a guitar magazine said, tips from Eddie Van Halen, Carmine Appice on Guitar Zeus in the guitar magazine.
Yeah, that's very cool.
So it worked. And then I did this Guitar Zeus 2, and that did well. Then I did a Guitar Zeus Japan, just guitar players from Japan. I did a Guitar Zeus Korea, and it came up to be an amazing series.
Wow.
You know? But I never released it here.
Why was that?
Because it was in the 90s. Everybody was into grunge.
Oh,
and it was grungy, but I was like a dinosaur here. So in 2005, when I finally got it out here, I thought, with a label, it had already been out around the world and did well. I made a lot of money from it and it was successful. I never toured with it either. I only did promotion tours. And it was coming out here in 2005, and the label went out of business as soon as it came out. So nobody ever heard of it. And 4 or 5 years later, I had another label that just threw it out there. Nobody ever heard of it. So finally, when I got all the rights back to me, last year in 2019, there was a song that wasn't finished that I finished, and I put Bumblefoot on it.
Yes.
And so that was a brand new song. And I had a couple of other songs that were like bonus tracks in Japan. And it was never on any American version. So I put all the bonus tracks on. And we had Do You Think I'm Sexy done with Pat Travers and me. You know, that was never on any of the Guitar Zeus records. So I put it all together and I released it on my own label. I hired my own PR people. We got distribution. We put it on Spotify and all that stuff. And actually, people know about it now. And it wasn't really about making money for me, because I already made money from this album. I wanted people in America to hear it, because I think it's one of the best milestones of my career.
Yeah, well, you played with so many great musicians, and I bought the CD when I met you the second time. You did a speaking tour at the Warner Theater in Connecticut.
Right,
I bought it then. I love it. You play with so many great musicians. I mean, you played with everybody in the business. We're going to talk about that later. But right now, I want to talk about the talking tour that Lucinda put together, because you have so many stories to tell. You came out with a book, but it was funny, informative, and interesting. How did that talking tour all come about?
Which one? The book?
No, the talking tour first.
Well, I wasn't on a tour. I've done a few different ones here and there. I haven't really done a tour. I was trying to get the speaking thing going. It's really difficult, you know. Yeah. It's really difficult. And I did that one there. Lucinda hooked it up, and it went really well. And we were trying to do some more, and then, you know, it's just really difficult, you know, to do that. I have friends of mine that they're making a lot of money doing it, you know, 14, 15 grand a night doing it. And they don't have the experience I have in the business. And all they're doing is talking about, you know, working with Cher or working with Pink. And this is how Pink would react to that. And this is how Cher, you know, it wasn't about their own ideas.
Yeah. It wasn't personal. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's why you have so many great stories.
Yeah. I mean, I have stories about, you know, my life and the history of rock because I lived it. Yeah. But I also had more of a intellectual and a more inspirational speech, which talks about how I dealt with stuff and how, you know, how my change of life decisions helped my life, and, you know, and how to keep moving forward with life and that kind of stuff. But it's really difficult. And then I got sideswiped again by doing gigs and doing albums and everything. So, you know, I haven't done that many. I scheduled another one, and then the virus hit, and I couldn't do it, you know. So, you know.
There's an end to this sometime soon, and we get some kind of normalcy. What's your prediction for the music scene in the next maybe year and a half?
Being a drag.
Yeah, that's what I think too. Because I've heard stories where they're doing concerts at drive-ins, and people can drive up. That's not the same, though.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, it's a way to see somebody. But
I agree with you.
You're not going to see as many people in the audience, and due to that, you're not going to get paid as much money. And, you know, if everything else has gone down in price, like plane tickets and bus tickets or, you know, or hotels, if they go down in price because nobody's using them now, then, you know, it's all relative, you know.
Yeah.
But if all those things go back to normal, it'd be very difficult for any musician to go out on the road and make any money and make a living.
Yeah.
You know, it's really a drag. I mean, knock on wood. You know, I've been lucky. You know, I'm old enough to get pensions and Social Security and all that. So I'm not getting killed by this that badly. You know, I can afford not to work for a few months. But I got friends of mine that, you know, they're musicians and they're, you know, on the brink of have no money.
Yeah.
You know, one of my roadies had no money. We were gonna, me and my brother Vinny, he worked for both of us. We were gonna send him some money. You know, my brother Vinny's okay, you know, because he's, you know, he had me and my sister and my older brother were all successful in what we've done, and we've coached Vinny on, you know, on the money part, you know, all his life. And my parents were always very good with money, you know, and they taught us to, you know, don't piss your money away, you know.
Yeah, that's a smart thing. Speaking about your parents, they seem very, very supportive of both. I know you and Vinny. I think you have a brother Frankie who was doing doo-wop for a while.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah,
he was. They were very supportive. And then for Vinny, it was great. I'd have band rehearsals in the living room, and my brother would have doo-wop rehearsals, you know, in the living room. And Vinny was like 7 or 8 years old, and like, wow, this is cool. And then he would see me on TV and everything when I made it, and he said, wow, this is really cool. I want to do that, you know, like I did when I saw the Gene Krupa story. I said, I want to do that, you know.
Yep, and you stuck to it, discipline, hard work, talent, and look where you are now. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, you came out with a book. It's called Stick It, My Life of Sex, Drums, and Rock and Roll. I highly recommend everybody buy it. But I want to go over a couple of the stories for my viewers because I think, I mean, there's so many stories we could talk about. But one is you had an unknown group at the time open up for Vanilla Fudge, and they featured a drummer named John Bonham.
Yeah. That's right. They were unknown. And the promoter didn't even want them on that date. It was a Denver date. It was sold out. It was Vanilla Fudge and Spirit, sold out, about 7,000 people. And the agent was the same agent as us. We had the same lawyer as Zeppelin. And our manager and their manager, Peter Graham, were very close. And because we were going to do the deal with Jeff Beck, you know, eventually. And so they were close. So my agent said to the promoter, look, come on, it's only $1,500 for Led Zeppelin, which is ridiculous. I mean, think about it.
I know.
So, and then in the end, he said, okay, I'll tell you what. The agent said to him, you pay $750 and Vanilla Fudge you pay $750. And I think we were getting $7,500. So we paid 10% of our fee to Led Zeppelin to open up for us on a show we didn't need them on.
You literally put them on the map.
Exactly. The first show in America. I mean, and then John Bonham became my friend. He loved my drum set. I called Ludwig and said, let's get him a drum set like mine. You know, I think they're going to be big. That's the understatement of 5 decades, you know. And it was the rest is history.
Well, he originally had a double bass like you did, and then he
he originally had a single bass drum on the first tour. It was a rented kit, small bass drum, small drums. He saw my big drums and freaked out. He wanted a kit. I got him a duplicate kit of mine. And then 6 months later, we went on tour again. He played that double kit, just like mine. And then at the end of that tour, Robert and Jimmy said, you're too busy with that. Please go back to the one bass drum. And when he did, the Led Zeppelin kit was born.
Uh-huh. How did you become part of the Rod Stewart band?
I called up a friend of mine, Sandy Gennaro. I met him on the street. And he said, I said, well, how you doing? Good. What are you doing? I just started audition with Rod Stewart. You get it? No. He said, you should call him. I said, oh, that's a good idea, because I was looking for some at that point. He gave me the number. I called up. It ended up being this guy, Pete Buckland, who was Rod Stewart's tour manager with the Faces when I toured with him with Cactus. So I knew this guy really well. We wrecked a lot of hotels and had a lot of fun together. So I called him and said, you don't call me, you're looking for a drummer? He goes, you're always busy. I said, oh man, I would love to play with Rod. He's my favorite singer. He says, oh, I'll tell him. So he told him, he said, well, Rod said, go to his house. The band is at his house and see if you like it. I said, wow, that's interesting. See if I like it. It's like I'm auditioning the band. So I said, okay. And I knew two of the members of the band. So I went there and I pulled up. I thought, well, I'm going to Rod Stewart's house. I'm going to bring one of my good cars with me. I had a Di Tommaso Pantera. So I'm going to drive up in the Pantera. I pull up to these giant gates and a huge mansion. I said, whoa, I didn't know Rod was this successful. I said, I want one of these houses. I want to play in this band. So I went in, I played with the band, and he had all these amazing cars, Porsches and Lamborghinis and all these amazing Rolls Royces in the driveway. And I said, well, at least I bought the Pantera and not my Volkswagen, you know?
Now, what year was this?
1976.
All right.
So I played with the band. It was great. Two days later, Rod came back. I went back to the house. I played with the band with Rod, and Rod said, hey, look, as far as I'm concerned, you're in if you want the gig. He said, I know you have fans. I'll give you a drum solo, and we got to get one way to say your name. So we came up with a piece, and I was in. He said, Billy Gaff, my manager, will call you and go over the deal, and we're good. And I said, okay. So we did that. The deal was fair. Everything was good. Next thing I know, I'm in rehearsal with Rod Stewart and the new band. We rehearsed for 6 weeks before we went out on the first tour of Europe.
And then you co-wrote one of my favorite songs from him, Do You Think I'm Sexy?
Yeah, I did. And that happened Rod was always a guy that listened to the charts, and he'd say, I want a song like this, I want a song like that. So when he wanted a song like Missing You by the Rolling Stones, I went back and I started fooling around with chords and ideas. Went to my buddy's studio, Dwayne Hitchings. He played keyboard and he played keyboard and had the synths and the bass and everything. So we put together a really coherent demo, and Rod loved it. And when we did it, we had 3 guitars, bass, drums, and the keyboard. And Dwayne played the synthesizer. And it was a big rock drum sound.
Yeah.
There was a big rock guitar sound, and everything was sounding really big. Tom Dowd said, oh, let me work my magic. He brought in the orchestra and some background singers and David Foster and Tom Scott. Next thing you know, we had 224 tracks. We had 48 tracks. When you do that, the sound shrinks, and he put the orchestra on it, and now it's not a big rock track anymore. It's sort of a rock or a disco rock track.
Yeah.
It wasn't an out-and-out disco drum track. It was like a disco rock track. It still had a lot of rock elements, including Rod's voice. But who do we to say? We weren't producing it.
Yeah.
It came out and went to #1 in 15 countries. So I didn't care. I said, wow, great. Call it anything you want to call it.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I did hear your version at the Warner Theater. You played it so just a little bit heavier.
Yeah, and that version is on my Guitar Zeus album.
Okay. Yep. Very good.
With Pat Travis playing guitar and me singing, and Pat singing as well.
All right. Well, you know what impresses me is that you can play drums and sing at the same time. I've seen you do that. That is very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, but there's a lot of people don't think of it, but there are a good amount of drummers. I was one of the first back in the day.
Yeah.
You know, but you think about it, you got Phil Collins did it, Don Henley did it, the guy in Rare Earth did it, the guy in Don Brewer from Grand Funk did it.
Yeah.
And he sang American, we're an American band. And there's a few others along the way that did it, you know. But I was one of the first did it with Vanilla Fudge. But, you know, I sang lead all through my teens and played drums, so it came easy. I was in doo-wop groups also. I sang harmony groups. That's why I know a lot about harmony. And, you know, so I like singing. I like a good soulful singer. I like good soulful backgrounds.
Yeah. Now, why did your partnership with Rod Stewart end?
Drugs.
Okay.
Yeah, he was a bit drugged out, but he wrote the book. You got the book, right?
Yeah.
You saw what he said in the beginning. He wrote the foreword.
Yeah.
He said, I fired Carmine, fuck knows why. And I know why. He was all drugged out, and Jim Cregan was in his ear to get rid of me.
Yeah.
You know, because I was, after Rod's name, everyone knew me.
Yeah.
I was the big name after Rod. He didn't like that. So
there was a little bit of an ego for when he was on
it
drugs.
was an ego. Yeah, it was an ego thing. They were Koch brothers, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, now that's all gone. Me and Rod's are friends again. You know, he wrote the intro.
Yep. No, I knew that, but I wanted my viewers to hear that story.
Yeah.
Later on, you replaced Tommy Aldridge from Ozzy during the Bark at the Moon tour.
Yeah.
What was that?
Well, I mean, I had a separate deal with Ozzy, or with Sharon, I should say, to be able to do master classes when I played. And I had my own merch, and I was doing master classes in America 5 days a week, making good money doing it, selling them out, and then going to play in the arena. And I was getting a lot of PR. I had in my contract too, I got my own press agent. So I was doing a lot of press. I was giving money to UNICEF. So I was a nice guy by doing that. And she didn't like that. So she basically fired me off the tour. And one gig she had her or somebody cut all the heads off my T-shirts on the picture of me playing with my name on it. And all the heads were cut off 24 T-shirts. You know, that would, you know, it was worth 24 T-shirts. I don't know, back then it was worth, you know, $500, you know, that I had to pay for.
Was Ozzy aware of this?
He's oblivious to everything.
That's what I figured, yeah.
Yeah.
But
so she said, we need more of a sideman like Tommy Aldridge. You've got to start your own band. Your name's too big. So they fired me. I sued them. And we came to a settlement agreement, but that's not what I wanted. I wanted to stay with Ozzy and help him get a great drum sound on his records and write songs and help produce. Because on that Bark at the Moon album, I was associate producer. And so I ended up in the studio with Ozzy, finishing the album with him. Finishing his vocals, helping with the mixes, you know, and then went to do the Bark at the Moon video with Ozzy. And I had associate producer on the first 500,000 albums. And I was supposed to get paid for that. And then with the deal, her firing me, maybe that's why she fired me, because I had a good deal that would have made a lot of money off of that.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I've heard the story when they remastered the albums Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman. They brought in another bass player, another drummer, just because they didn't want to pay Bob Daisley and.
No, well, it's because the name of the album with Blizzard of Oz was actually the name of the band. It was supposed to be a 4-way split, but she went in and fixed the deal and changed the deal behind their back. And next thing you know, and they recorded both those albums at the same time. They recorded 2 albums at the same time. So they couldn't change it. You know, once the guys found out, it was too late. The albums were recorded. So they stayed with it and they played with Ozzy, and then Bob left and Lee left, and then they got Tommy, and then, you know, Bob came back and they left again, and then they sued him because, you know, they got screwed out of like $10 million each.
Did they win?
No, they didn't win. They didn't win because something to do with her father that owned Black Sabbath at the time.
Yeah, Don Arden.
Don Arden, who was a connected mafia kind of guy. And he went in, and she wasn't talking to him for some reason. But then when this lawsuit came up, she said that Don could see the grandkids finally if he would say something to the judge that wasn't true.
Yeah.
You know?
From what I've heard other interviews with different musicians that know her, and they said she's cutthroat, unfortunately.
With the magic that he gave for
Well, it was great talking to you, Carmine.
Okay.
I'd love to have you back, so I definitely have so much more to talk to you about. But one last thing before you go, promote what's going on next and where people can find you.
Well, it's Cactus. The next Cactus album is being mixed now, and I don't know when it's coming out because of the virus.
Okay.
And I don't know when the next gigs are because of the virus. But tomorrow, Friday night, we're going to be doing a TV show kind of thing on Facebook called Artists on Lockdown. It's going to be a host and me and my brother.
Very good. And also the Dio tribute.
And the Dio tribute. Yeah, you can get that at thepeacebrothers.com. There's the link for the video, and there's the, you should have it too, I think, right?
Yes.
And there's a link for the lyrics.
It's going to be showing on the interview on the screen, so people can check that out. All the links.
It's fantastic. Thank you so much, man. I'll see you next time. See you in Connecticut.
Most definitely. Have a great day.
Yeah, bro. Bye-bye.
That wraps up another episode of the Claus Corner, the Zoom edition. It was an honor to have my guest, singer, songwriter, author, and legendary drummer to all the legends, Carmine Appice on the Claus Corner. Thank you very much for being on my show. And I'd also like to thank you, the viewer, for tuning in every week. Enjoy your day, everyone.